All right, today we're going to go over area again, and then we're going to touch on irregular shapes. So if you remember that area is the measurement within the shape, right? So you have this space inside the shape. And so you multiply length times width, like an array, right? And so I like to, in my head, think that, okay, they both start with an A, area, and array. You multiply, okay? So to find the area, you multiply. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Length times width. So that's what you do when you have a square or a rectangle. But, not everything is a square or a rectangle. So let's look at the area of an irregular shape. All right. So if we look at this, this is not a square or a rectangle, right? It's got this little piece chunked out, right? If this little piece was here, it would be a square, right? So if you look at it like this, what you know, you're looking at the opposite sides, okay? So this whole piece is not broken, right? It's a straight line, unbroken. And they're saying that this is 10 yards. So, right, if this was 10 yards, this whole line would be 10 yards, right? So that means we're kind of like pushing this down, right? So here is part of that same, right? Like the opposite side of this. So this is 8 yards, right? And again, we're decomposing numbers. So if the whole thing has to equal 10, going in the same direction, this is 2 yards. All right. So now if we look at the opposite sides, if this is the full line, this is 10 yards, right? So that would mean this whole side together would have to be 10 yards, right? Except if they had taken this part out. So it's this solid line and this solid line. If we pushed this solid line over here, it would be the full square in this case. So if this side is 10 yards, then this piece, if this piece is 5 yards, then this piece, right, 5 plus 5 is 10. It has to equal the unbroken line, okay? So now let's say we had to find the area for this shape, okay? There's different ways we could break it up, so let's look. Let's say we broke it up this way, okay? So we have this rectangle and this rectangle, okay? So again, you have to do length times width. So if we're doing length times width, there's still a lot of numbers around. How do we know what numbers to pick? I'm going to look for unbroken lines. So I could do this one, but it only goes to here. This is my unbroken line, right? So that's 10. Right? I could pick this line, right? But what happens here? I split this up. So, this rectangle right here, A, is not this whole line, right? It's this line. So 10 times 5. So shape A would be 50 yards. Okay. Now we have to look at shape B. So we'll say shape A. Now we want to look for shape B, right? So again, okay, which ones am I going to pick? Could I pick 10 yards? Well, this is this whole line, and that's not that whole shape, right? So I could look over here. Oh yeah, this is this shape. So that's 5 yards. And then here's my 2 yards. So B would be 5 yards times 2 yards equals 10 yards. Now, we did this to help us figure it out, but if we take this line out, right, that's the shape we're talking about. So we have to add these two together. So together, it would be 60 yards. All right. Now, we could split it a different way. All right. So here's our shape, same thing, but we could split it this way. So rectangle, rectangle. So again, we still have all these numbers over here that we have to figure out, what are we going to multiply? So if we look at it this way, right, let's make our shape A and our shape B. So let's go here. This says 10 yards, but I split this shape. That's part of shape B. So I don't want to use the 10 yards. Let me look down here. 8 yards. Oh yeah, that stops where I split it off. So it's going to be 8 yards. Okay. Times 5 yards. Yeah, that's that whole shape. Okay. All right, so we will multiply that. It will give us 40 yards, right? And now we have to look at shape B. So, shape B, 5 yards? Well, no, because it continues up here, right? So I have to go, let's see, does this work? Yeah, that's that whole side of this long rectangle here. Yes, okay, so that's 10 yards and 2 yards. Okay, so 10 yards times 2 yards equals 20 yards. Okay, now again, this is the actual shape that we're talking about. We just split it up this way. So we have to add both pieces. So we'll add our 40 and our 20. And 40 plus 20 is 60. Okay. So does it matter which way I split it up? Right? I could have split it up this way. Right? Had this rectangle and this rectangle. Or I could have split it up this way. Either way, you should still get the same thing because what you're doing, it's still this shape. You're just breaking it up into smaller pieces to make it easier for you to figure out the area, the inside space. Okay? All right, so we'll try some together.